everybody's valuable to the principles that we believe in, and making sure that those principles get implemented in this state and around the country. And I told somebody, I probably said it more than once, I said, I'd rather have a handful of individuals with me that are working hard and committed to the cause, whatever it is we're working on, versus having hundreds that are wishy-washy and not committed. So, again, I'm thankful to be here. It's not my first time to Rome and speaking. My good friend, Miss Chairman Shipman, now invited me. Oh, was it a year, maybe? About 2 years. In my role as chairman of the Georgia Black Republican Council, I've had an opportunity to speak all around the state. And so the fact that now I'm running for first vice chair of the state party doesn't change my commitment, and it doesn't change who I am. This is just another part of the journey, in in a position I feel like I can bring my experience, bring some things that I've done in the past to this new position. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and then obviously I'll talk about some things that I want to see happen with the state party. Being in a position like this is about service. I first learned about service growing up in my church, serving my fellow man. How can I help someone else? That got reinforced when I was in the Boy Scouts, and I'm proud to say I'm an Eagle Scout and a life member of the National Eagle Scout Association. And then I went on to serve in the U.S. Army National Guard, went to basic training in AIT while I was in college at Georgia Southern University, where I earned my degree in criminal justice. And then went on to serve as a police officer in Fulton County for over 10 years. And I've seen a lot of good things about our society, and some things that aren't so good. But in everything, I saw an opportunity to change things for the better, to have an impact on individuals and circumstances that needed help and needed someone to be there for them. So this is another opportunity to serve. And as we know, these aren't paid positions. We do these things. You all are at this meeting not because of some personal gain, but because of what you believe. And we believe in the same principles. We believe in the individual over the collective. We believe in what we can achieve versus what the government can achieve. And that's why we want lower taxes for everyone. And as you know, when Democrats typically talk about, these evil corporations and CEOs, and we've got to raise these taxes to help other people. Well, when you tax businesses, it's not the business that gets hurt. It's the individual. Because if I'm a CEO of a company, what am I going to do? I'm going to not hire as many employees as maybe I was going to hire. I'm going to cut the benefits maybe of my current employees, or I'm going to raise the price of the goods that I sell. So it's not the company that pays the tax, it's the individual. It's the individual. And we believe in a strong national defense. We believe that Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security, if we don't do something about that, it's going to be bankrupt. There's a fundamental difference about the way we see things. And so we need to implement those principles in a way that hasn't been done in a while. We've gone off on the wrong track, but we can make this country great again. And so again, I want to serve with that mindset and help this state party and our national party and everything that we do involving those principles better. Served for several years now as the chairman of the Georgia Black Republican Council, and one of the things that I've been talking about for a number of years, and now we're seeing more people talk about, is broadening our base. And that means broadening the base within the black community, Hispanic community, Asian community, with young people. We've got to do things a different way. And it's not about changing our principles. We don't need and should not do that. And I'll give you a perfect example. How many of you all have ever had a can of Coca-Cola? Everybody in the room. Do you remember when Coca-Cola decided they were going to go with another formula to try a new Coke? How did that work out for the company? It didn't work out well at all. They didn't need to go away from their foundation of what made the company successful. And neither do we as Republicans. So what did Coca-Cola do? They saw that that wasn't the answer, and so they went back to the original formula. Now, over the years, they have made some changes, but was it to the formula? What did they change? They had different spokesmen for the company. A different audience that they're meeting, a different way that they brought the message to people. But it wasn't tinkering with the foundation. So when we talk about broadening the base, we don't need to compromise on our principles. We don't need to talk in some different language to somebody because their skin color is different, or because they're younger or older. We just need to communicate effectively. And let me give you a few examples of what I'm talking about, communicating effectively. Now, in the black community, and when you talk to a lot of Democrats, when they hear Republicans say states' rights, that's a problem. States' rights, the issue of states' rights was used during the civil rights movement as an argument to divide people, to keep us segregated. So a lot of people, when they hear states' rights, they think about that time, and then they associate that mentality with the Republican Party. So we don't need to be saying that. But listen to this. If you've read the Constitution, there is no such thing as states' rights. Individuals have rights. The states have powers delegated or relegated to them. So if you just change a simple few words in a conversation with somebody about the states taking up the mantle versus the federal government, then you have an opportunity. When we talk about immigration, we focus so much on the southern border. And so our friends on the other side of the aisle say, well, you have a problem with Hispanics. Well, that's not true. But why is it when we talk about the border in immigration that we only focus on the southern border? Why are we not talking about our northern border as well? Because when you do that, now it's about the border and it's not about a specific group of people. Consultants get paid a lot of money to help companies and political parties and whatnot, but this is very simple. These are the types of things we need to adjust in our message that will resonate with people and not bring up barriers that don't need to be there. When we talk about, we've heard people say, and I heard it just a few weeks ago from an elected official, great individual, but I think we had a difference of opinion about how we communicate the message. They say, we need to abolish the Department of Education. Okay. But is that winning over somebody when they hear that said? No. But look what's happened in our state with the school choice issue. We had Republicans and Democrats at the grassroots level, everyday voters supporting people's choice in choosing what schools that their children attend. Now, your elected Democrats were opposed to it, but the everyday person that goes to work every day, works hard, that were Democrats, agreed with Republicans that we, as parents, we, as students that go to school, should have that choice about where we go. We should not be capsulized into going to schools based on our zip code. But that was a bipartisan issue that we effectively communicated, and we didn't lie, we didn't manipulate, we made it about individuals, and we spoke to where they were, and not, hey, let's abolish the Department of Education. So simply changing how we communicate with individuals will go a long way. Another aspect of that I think is very important. You know the individuals in your communities that have influence, the business owners, those that are the presidents of homeowners associations. You know where the churches are. You know where people in this community are out there doing things for other people, helping and passionate about certain things. If you know who they are, if you know where they are, tie into what they're doing. I'll give you an example. My church, every year they pass out baskets to single-parent households. So if I know that, and I'm a member of the Republican Party, and I want to connect with people that aren't yet voting Republican, then I need to go to that church and say, hey, here's a check to help with those efforts. And beyond that, here's a van load of people that will help you pass out these baskets. Now, some might say, well, hey, the Republican Party is not a charity. No, it's not a charity. But we are about people. We are about the individual, and individuals have problems. Individuals need help. along the way. So why aren't we as a party plugging into that? And when you do things like that, people get to know you. I'm not coming in the door with the Republican banner in hand. I'm coming as Michael McNeely. And I'm coming to say, I want to help you do something that's worthwhile, something that I would do as an individual, regardless of the party, things that I do right now, but because I'm a part of this organization as well, and we're an organization of people that go to work every day, that we care about people, we go to church, we do all these things, why aren't we also doing it in the realm of politics and the political party? And when people see that and they get to know you as an individual, then those barriers come down, and then they're willing to hear about the Republican Party. And you'll have conversations while you're picking up these baskets. You'll have conversations while you're driving somewhere to help a young person that's gotten off track. Boys and Girls Clubs and other organizations. And you'll say, well, hey, did you hear about that issue on the news last night? The Democrats said this, the Republicans had this position, and you'll be talking about it, but you do it in the context of helping others, unselfishly. Everything's about relationships. And when you think about the churches and the business leaders and whatnot, you'll have to prioritize every community, every county, every district. You look at what's there, who's there, the organizations that are there, and you decide, okay, how are we going to tackle this? Where are we going to start? And what are we looking to do? We've got to be able to enumerate these things. Because if you just say, hey, this concept, this is great, let's go do it, and then everybody's scattered about, but there's no plan in place, then you don't get things accomplished. So this local community, I'll say, okay, we've got 10 churches that we've identified, we've got 15 businesses. Now how do we decide who we start our relationship with first, and then who do we go next? Or do we base it off of individuals in the party that have a particular business background that would be good to head up this aspect of the plan? Those that are already very active in church, and they would be good to do that. You've got to think those things through. And this won't be an overnight process, but nothing worthwhile happens in it. It takes time. But in time, you will see those barriers broken. You'll see a change in how people view this party, and it won't matter what the traditional media says. It won't matter what Democrats say, because we'll be leading the charge to let people know who we are. And another aspect of what I think is very important is, what is our relationship, the state party, with our elected officials? The legislative session is going on right now, and there may be 5 days left in the session. But what has the state party done to make sure you know what the issues are, and let you know what progress is being made on different bills in the House and the Senate? And letting you know that means we're not just giving you information, but how can you help change the course of where these bills go? How is your voice being heard in that process? So I think the state party needs to have a better relationship with our elected officials and talk about before the session. What are you looking to propose during the next session? How are you looking to tweak a particular bill we as conservatives have a problem with? How are we going to tackle that? And build that relationship and start putting out that information so that the elected officials aren't just coming to us when it's time for re-election. They're not just coming to a dinner where there's going to be a lot of people, but it's every day. And the state party and those involved in it, they are staying on top of this issue. And I need to make sure that I'm communicating with them effectively at all times. It will keep them accountable. And it will keep us accountable as responsible citizens, because, and other people have said it, this isn't original, other people have said it, is you can't just go in and elect somebody and then forget about it. It's got to be a constant process of holding them accountable, make sure that they're doing what we need them to do as conservatives. And maybe you see a theme here: relationships. Relationships in our community, relationships with our elected officials. And now one more aspect that I want to touch on here is relationships when we know the term grassroots. Now, as I said, this isn't the first time I've come to Rome to speak, and it won't be my last. I'm running for first vice chair of the state party, but the campaign's going to end at some point, and we're going to have winners and we're going to have losers. Now, obviously, I'm planning to be a winner and be your next first vice chair. And if things go that way, then you don't just need to see me when it's election time. I need to be asking you, hey, what do you think about this? This is an idea I had that we could roll out as a state party. What do you think about it? Hey, I heard you don't agree with this issue. Tell me what you would do. Hearing from you as individuals, your talents, your abilities, your experience and background, we are all in this thing together. And we use our background into what we do. It shouldn't just be a group of people that sit up in Atlanta and plan everything and then you hear about it. It should be all of us working together. Now, I live in Metro Atlanta right now. I live in a suburb of Atlanta in Douglas County. But I grew up in a small town of about 2,000 people called Wrens, Georgia, W-R-E-N-S, in Jefferson County. It's near Augusta. And so I've lived in the big city, I've lived in the small town. And I realize that everything's not happening in our state capital. It's all around our state. And everyone is valuable. Men, women, younger conservatives, older conservatives, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, it doesn't matter. Because we all have something that we can contribute to the agenda of promoting and instituting our principles in everyday life. They are the principles that have made this nation great and are part of our foundation. And it will be those same principles that will win the day in lowering taxes for everyone, strengthening our national defense, and all of the other issues that are so very important to us. People will go to work because we don't overtax and overregulate businesses. People need to go to work. People need to be free to make their own choices about their own individual lives. Because what government says when they take our tax money is basically, I know better how to use your money than you do. And that's a problem. Because I know what's best for my family. And when I give my money to a church or some other organization, Red Cross, it's because I know that they have a track record of success. It's an organization or people that I believe in. And government, we know, is very ineffective in a lot of ways. Think about Hurricane Katrina. You saw the images of buses being flooded. You heard about the FEMA trailers not being used to help house people. But who was able to be successful at that time? Home Depot, Walmart, free market businesses that have been successful, not the government. Now, government has its role, but it is limited. And we, the people, created the federal government. The federal government didn't create or make us who we are today. So everything is about relationships. Relationships with individuals that are not yet a part of our party. Relationships with our elected officials. Relationships with the grassroots all across the state in all 159 counties. I'm but one man, and there is no man or woman who's an island unto themselves. We have to do anything that we want to be successful in together. So I'm going to be quiet now, and if Wes is okay with it, I'll be glad to answer any questions. I thank you for having me today. It's always a pleasure to be with other individuals with like minds and hearts, because it gets rough out there, as we know. Sometimes we get beat up by those that don't think like us, and it's always good to be amongst friends. So thank you all for having me tonight.
Michael, would you explain to everybody, not everybody knows exactly what the first vice chair does for the state party. Could you kind of just explain what that role is with the state party?
And I'll start with the state party rules. Now, if you read the state party rules, it doesn't say a whole lot about first vice chair in the rules. It essentially says that in the absence of the chairman, you would take the chairman's place. You'd be the chief spokesman. You would run the day-to-day. But how often does whoever that is, how often are they not a part of the picture? So then you think, well, outside of that, what does the first vice chair do? In the state party rules talk about, well, you basically do whatever you're given a task to do. I got a problem with that, folks. Because if I'm the first vice chairman of the Georgia Republican Party, I've been elected too. And I didn't do it because I didn't have anything else to do. I'm doing it because I want to work hard and contribute to our party, to our state. So for me, what that means is being active in what I've been talking about tonight. Going places on the weekend, going places during the week, talking to people, being a part of rallies, getting involved with media folks and say, listen, this is what the party is and this is what we're doing. Going to churches and helping them do the things that they do. Talking to business leaders, coming up with a plan where we can all be involved. So it's everything that we think we need to do as a party. The first vice chair should not be someone that's not willing to do whatever is necessary. Hold up the signs, pass out push cards. There is no job too big or too small that a first vice chair should not be a part of. We've got to do it all. So if you come and say, hey, somebody needs help being reelected as a Republican, and we're going to go do door to door, then I ought to be willing to do that. So the role of first vice chair ought to be whatever it needs to be to make the party successful in our principles.
Is anybody running against you?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I don't know.
Catherine Bernard. She's a public defender from the Dublin area, and we've talked, and we're not enemies. We're both just running for the same position. And at the end of the day, no matter what happens, she says she's committed to helping me if I win, and I've committed the same thing. So, obviously, I'm running for this position. I'm talking to you about my background and what I believe and where I think we can go. I obviously believe I'm the best person for the job and would ask for your support in that. Anybody else?
How do you change the minds of the people in the community? Because some of the people are deadly set on being a Democrat.
Right.
What are your ways of changing their thoughts and their mindset? What did you do, or how did you go about getting all those things done?
Well, it's the things that I talked about tonight, and then you have to realize there's some people that you're not going to win over, and that's okay. But you have to be willing to engage. You can't wait for people to come to a meeting like this. You got to go where people are. I go get my hair cut, and most of the people in the room at the barbershop, they're Democrats. And that's okay. My barber, and we had conversations while I'm sitting in the chair, and I talked to him about various amounts of issues. One day I'm coming in, about to get my hair cut, and he tells the room full, hey, Michael's a Republican, ha ha ha. But there was an opportunity there, because we started talking about Social Security and a lot of other issues, and at first it was very hostile, but I stood my ground. And that's something you can't be afraid to engage people. And I'm just going to be very candid. There are a lot of white men and women that are a little apprehensive about engaging someone of a different race. I said, listen, you can't do that. Don't worry about them calling you racist, because if they're going to do that, they're going to do it whether you stand up for your principles or not. You got to engage. Nobody's going to respect you if you're timid and holding back and trying to placate everybody. So go where people are. Go boldly and be willing to spend the time to work through the issue. Now, I got my hair cut and I was done. We talked, but then, I could have gotten up out of the chair and left, but I didn't. I stayed there another hour and a half talking about these things. Because even if somebody doesn't agree, you got to respect the fact that I'm willing to engage with you. And I don't back down. Don't come to me with emotion. Come to me with facts. If you don't know the facts, listen to the facts I'm bringing to you and go check it out. And if you, at the end of the day, at the end of the conversation, if you still don't believe what I'm saying to you, at least be able to stand on facts and what you believe, and to just say that, hey, we disagree. But don't come to me about emotion. Don't come to me about what you heard. Don't come to me about what the media said. Deal with the facts. And some people are going to be Democrats because it's, that's that popular thing to do. Beyonce sung at the inauguration, and I love Beyonce. And Jay-Z's a supporter of Obama, and all this kind of thing. You're going to have to fight through all of that, because it's not about that. I remember when I spoke to a nation, the whole nation, on CNN, when Rick Sanchez was still there, in 2008, it was myself and two other black Republicans, and they were asking us why we were supporting the Republican over candidate Obama. And we said our piece. The video went to YouTube, and I shouldn't have done it. But I went to YouTube and I started reading some of the comments. And it was ugly, folks, from a lot of people saying some ugly things. And at the time, it hurt me. And I thought, well, man, should I keep doing what I'm doing? But I had to get over that fear. I had to get over that anxiety. I had to get over whether my friends or some of my colleagues had a problem with me being a conservative Republican. And I just had to do it. So you just have to go where people are, you have to engage them boldly, and as I alluded to, you have to come with facts. Because sometimes we come to the table and sometimes we're lacking facts. And it's our responsibility to know and to hold our elected officials accountable.
What point in your life did you become a conservative, and what led you to that?
Well, thank you. I'm glad you asked that. And oftentimes when I speak for the first time, especially Republican organizations, I tell my story. And you know, my story is different than probably a lot of other people. But I was at home one day. I don't know. I may have been watching Good Morning America, or the local news, or the nightly national news. But I was watching something on television. They were talking about something political, and I got to think, you know, there are lots of things that I don't know about this political process. There are a lot of issues that I'm not abreast of right now, and I was, you know, I wasn't too many years out of college, so still, you know, in my 20s. And so I go to the bookstore and get one of those Politics for Dummies books. And I'm reading through the book, and I get to the chapter on political parties. And so they have a list of, you know, the issues that we talk about every day: taxes, national defense, you know, abortion, all these things. And so I just started checking off what I believed about the issues. And I kept reading on through the chapter, and I realized I had more checks on the Republican side than I had the Democrat side. And so once that happened, it's like a rubber band. Once you stretch a rubber band, it can never go back to its original shape. And so I was forever changed. I said, man, I've got to know more. So I started watching more of the national news and local news, and I started, you know, listening to some of the pundits and reading political articles and all these things. And so I started getting myself stronger and stronger in my understanding of the issues and where I stood on it. And then one day, I took the courage to get up one morning and go to my local Republican Party meeting. And it was, you know, it was a little scary, because I figured I'm going to be the only minority in the room. And I was. But that was okay, because when I got in that room and I started talking to people and meeting people, I realized it didn't matter about the difference in our skin tone or even our age difference. What I realized is I had more in common with those individuals in the room because of what we believe, the principles that we stand on and live by every day. And once that connection was made, I was off to the races. I attended more meetings. And eventually, I was asked to be on the executive committee in Douglas County. And then I ended up being a vice chair. And I ended up being an alternate delegate to the 2008 National Convention. And ended up being the chairman of the Georgia Black Republican Council and working on campaigns and all these things. But I had to find out something I didn't know. And I took the initiative to do that. But whether it was my initiative or somebody came to me, the bottom line is I learned something new. I was stretched, and that took me to higher heights and deeper depths. And I got involved in the party, and here I am today. So it's our responsibility to take what we know, to show how much we care, and to impact our communities all over the state. And if you'll see on my push cards, a quote is that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And if they know that, there's just so much room to do so many great things. And that's what we need to do as a party. We should have been doing it all along, but you know, it's better late than never. Start now and don't ever go back. Make it about people, and people will respond.
What do you say to people that when you talk to them and they say, well, my vote doesn't really count, or it doesn't matter if I am Democrat or Republican, because they're going to do whatever they want to do anyway. They don't care, especially higher up, you know, in state parties and on up. What do you say to those people?
Yeah, people that say that their vote doesn't matter, that you know, who cares, Republican or Democrat? Well, here's an example. Because I hear people say, well, sometimes I vote Republican, sometimes I vote Democrat. And I think about a road, a tug of war. Republicans on one end of the road, Democrats on the other. Constant back and forth. Republicans have a victory today, another day Democrats have a victory. But if we ever let go of the rope, and the other side doesn't, they pull the rope to their side and they win. It's a constant battle about these issues. And so it's imperative that we pick sides. And it's not about black versus white or anything else, it's about the principles. If my principles line up with the Republican Party, that's the side I'm on. If your principles line up with the Democrat engaged, and somebody else is, then they win. So it's important to every day, every election cycle, and all times in between, to be involved at all times. And when people say their vote doesn't count, and I know it's right here at the local level, but look, Chairman Shipman won by 2 votes. And we've heard about other races around the state, somebody won by 100 votes, 50 votes. Your vote matters. It matters. And in voting, if you're an engaged voter and the candidates know that you're engaged, they're going to respond to you. So your one vote goes beyond your one vote, because they know, man, that young lady in Rome is going to call me if I don't do what I said I was going to do. Or they're going to remind me that what I said on the campaign trail, and if my votes aren't consistent with that, they're going to hold me to account. So it goes beyond your vote to impacting day-to-day lives of elected officials that are making decisions that affect us all every day. So those are some of the things that you need to tell those people that are not so optimistic about being involved. And that goes whether it's elected officials and their votes or the state party and how we engage there. Because you have to make sure that, listen, you're not just going to do things without my input, because I am involved, I am engaged, and I want to be a part of what we do as a party.
Does a lot of those people say things like that because of the electoral vote?
I mean, I guess it could be. I mean,
because
obviously
they feel like that a lot of those votes are already made before they get to us.
Explain that a little further, make sure I'm clear.
Okay, well, you know, you have all the big business guys, and they're like the Rockefellers and all of these guys, and they have a big group of them. And what they usually do, they say that they actually put the president in office before we even get a vote. And they just let us vote to pacify us. How do you feel about that? Is that true, or is that false, or are you aware of that?
Look at, and I'll take an example from Democrats. I mean, President Bill Clinton. Now, he wasn't the front runner when he ran in his primary, but he ended up being the candidate for Democrats. So if he wasn't the front runner, that meant he didn't have as many dollars as some of the other candidates, but that didn't determine the outcome of who the nominee was for their party. You know, money and influence from businesses is one aspect of this thing. But again, a lot of times our voices aren't heard because we're oftentimes not as engaged. We have to make sure our voices are heard. We have to go down to you've seen people go down to the state capitol and rally for a particular issue. And you think about, wow, that's a big crowd. But how much bigger could it have been for some of us that said, well, I'm just tired today, or I'll do it next time. If we got engaged. Money's just money, and the influence that that brings is only one aspect. You're not going to win or lose an election solely based on that money. And again, looking at the Democrats' success with Obama, they got so many donations from small donors, you know, the $25, the $15, the $35, and those added up. So, you know, it's not just about being able to write a check for $5,000. But it's about what am I as an individual going to do to make my voice heard. Part of it's money, part of it's getting out there and engaging our candidates and elected officials. There's so many other things we can do. Making the phone call. What if the Rome YR said, we got 100 people coming to do phone banking for you. Now it's like, okay, maybe I didn't take the Rome YR so seriously before, but I need to win this election. Now they're bringing 100 people to the table to come make phone calls for me. So there's just so many ways to have influence beyond a big business and company or individual being able to stroke a check. Anybody else? I can go all day.
And he can. Now, what are you doing on August the 10th?
August 10th.
Saturday. Usually we're at the airport hangar.
Oh, yes.
Just put it on your calendar.
Oh,
I got you
yes.
here.
Yes, well.
On video, make that commitment.
Yes.
That regardless, you'll be here.
Well, I would say that unless, you know, the rapture happens on that day, or if my wife tells me I can't go, then I plan to be in the hangar with you on that day. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you again for having me. It's my pleasure and my honor to be here with you. And it's important that I earn your support. I take nothing about this race for granted, because I need to be able to convince you based on who I am and what I bring to the table that I'm the best person for a first vice chair. And so if I've done that, support me. Vote for me if you're a delegate. Contribute financially if you can do that. Volunteer and help me go out and spread the message, whatever that you feel like you can contribute. Then I want you to be a part of my team, because we're in this together. Everything's about relationships. So thank you again for having me tonight.